We've been exploring the inward, the outward, and connectivity. It can be said in the stories over these last days, there has been a possibility of presenting different ways of describing this inward and outward. But what about connectivity? There's a story about the great King Mahmud. Now, King Mahmud can be said to be an enlightened being. And we have to put our own interpretation of what enlightenment is. But let's just say that he was considered to be an enlightened man. But King Mahmud had a way of connecting with his populace. He would quite often put on the garb of an ordinary man, even a peasant, you might say. And at night time he would go abroad into the town, where he would visit the coffee shops and those traders in the bazaars, and he would chat with them, learn what they were about, what their thoughts were, what their difficulties were. But one night, when King Mahmud was out in his describe, late, in the wee hours of the morning, you could say, he was suddenly met in a dark street by 4 robbers. Now the robbers had not the intent of robbing him, but they were quite surprised to see someone out at this very late hour. So they asked him, what are you doing on the streets at this late hour of the night? We are robbers, and it's quite natural for us to be out at night, but what are you doing? And King Mahmud, thinking very quickly, said, well, I'm a robber too. And so the robbers, quite taken aback by this, said, well, we're not just ordinary robbers. We're very special robbers. So what's special about you? So King Mahmud, again thinking quickly, said, well, you tell me what's special about you, and then I'll tell you what's special about me. And so the first robber said, well, I can see in the dark. If I meet someone in the dark of night and I meet him in the daytime, I know exactly who he is. And the second robber said, well, I can hear in great distances, I can hear the dogs barking, and I can interpret what they're saying. And the third robber said, well, I can smell gold. I can smell gold and jewels from a distance. And the fourth robber said, well, I can taste a lie. If someone tells a lie, I immediately get a bitter taste in my mouth, and I know that somebody is lying. What can you do? And King Mahmud said, well, I can wiggle my beard and save someone's life. Well, of course, the robbers listened to this, and this was very far-fetched, but the robber who could taste a lie had no bitter taste in his mouth, so they agreed to believe him. And so they said to King Mahmud, well, if you can help us to do a heist, we'll make you the leader of our pack. So again, King Mahmud, in his wisdom, said, well, I know a way into the king's palace. So they all said, well, let's do it. Let's go for broke and let's go to his treasury and fill up our sacks. So off they went to the king's palace, and he led them through a little secret way through the hedge that they could get in, and the robber who could smell gold very quickly led them to the entrance to the coffers of the palace's treasury, and they filled up their bags. And of course King Mahmud was going along with this, and he followed them back after the heist to their lair, where of course they were very tired after their night's activities, and after taking a flagon or two and something to eat, they each lay down to sleep. So King Mahmud was able to make his escape and go back to his palace and go through his secret passageway back to his chamber, where he went and fell asleep and had a good rest before it was time to get up and deal with the dealings that go on in a king's palace. But of course the first thing that the King Mahmud did when he got up in the morning was he called his soldiers together, and he directed them how to go to the robber's house to reclaim all the loot that they'd stolen, and also, of course, bring them into custody. So when they were brought before King Mahmud, of course, the robber with the ability to be able to see in the dark immediately recognized the king. This is the man who we encountered last night and did our house, so now we're done for. And they all realized that their heads were going to be lopped from their shoulders. But of course, King Mahmud had already stated that he could wiggle his beard and save a person's life, and so what could he do? He had to live up to this, and so he did. He wiggled his beard, and the robbers were allowed to go free, and you can finish the story whatever way you like. What he did with the robbers and so forth.
Well, he let them go free. He didn't put them in the dungeon.
No, he did not.
Lucky robbers.
But if we care to look at this story, we can well recognize that King Mahmud represents the inward, sometimes called the God Self, and the robbers, of course, represent senses, which are to do with existence, as we well know. But there are two questions that arise out of this story. The first is, why is it that the fifth sense of feeling was not represented by a robber? And of course the big question, what has this story got to tell us about connecting or connectivity when it comes to our exploration of the inward and the outward? And what say you? Why was feeling, the sense of feeling, not represented by a robber in this story? And what does it tell us about connecting? And maybe that connection between the inward and the outward that we're looking at. Feeling.
Well, all the other senses can be deceptive.